Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for actually giving us, the transgender woman, this space to speak, because most of the time our voice are unheard. You know, we are often confused being labeled under the umbrella of MSM. We are not MSM. Please, I beg you, listen. We are not MSM. We are transgender women. Our issues, our needs, our concerns are totally different. So I beg the Global Fund and everyone else that out there to please do not lump us in a group of MSM. Okay? That's the first thing. And I'm not segregating. I love MSM, and definitely I love men. Okay? So, yes, coming back. So, coming back with the story. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Testing one? Good, okay. So yes, I'm a Malaysian. I love my country because most of my family members are there. I grew up in Malaysia, and I'm a Muslim transgender woman. Basically, I was arrested under the Sharia law just because of my identity. And this is why. This is the legal system in Malaysia. We have the federal constitution, which is based on the constitution, and then we have the civil law and the Sharia law. As I pointed there, the civil law is based on criminal laws, and the Sharia law is mostly on family laws. But the thing about Malaysia, the Sharia law does contravene with the civil law. 60% of Malaysians are Muslim. Under the civil law, we have a section 21, which is minor offense, which has been used previously back then for the transgender sex workers back home, where they would be fined 25 ringgit Malaysia. But nowadays, it's not has been used. Do you know why? Because we have the Sharia law just for your identity, which is for male person posing as a woman. What does that mean? It means that if I'm a Muslim transgender woman, once I step out from my door, or from my house, or from my apartment, or from my car, or just to have dinner out there in the public, I can be arrested under this law. And it's not fine 25 ringgit Malaysia, yeah? This is the fine. So basically, this is the breakdown of the laws here. And one thing about Malaysia, which I find it interesting, is that the Sharia law is supposed to be based on the Quran. As a Muslim, I respect the Quran itself. But in the Sharia law, in different states, it's different interpretation of certain sections. For instance, there's two, yeah? Any male person who is in any public place, wears a woman's attire and poses as a woman, shall be guilty of an offense and shall be be liable to a fine not exceeding, I will mention later the price, the fine, or to imprisonment of term of not exceeding of, or both. That's one. What does that mean? As I mentioned earlier, I can be charged just because of my gender identity as a woman. For me I'm not a cross-dresser, but again, remember I said we've always been lumped in MSM. We are not cross-dressers, we are trans women. It's totally different, okay? And the other one is that, if you just look at the above that have been highlighted, wears a woman's attire and poses as a woman for immoral purposes. What is that? That is sex work. And I would say 60%, 50 to 60% of transgender women are in sex work in Malaysia. Okay? There you go. This is the breakdown of the Sharia law in Malaysia. It's different fine, different imprisonment, and so on. Let me give an example from, I actually did a hierarchy showing that the differences of fine and imprisonment. For instance, in Negeri Sembilan, Section 66, you can be fined of RM 1,000 ringgit or 334 Australian dollars and imprisonment of 6 months. And if you go down, right down below, in police, Section 7, you can be fined up to 5,000 ringgit Malaysia. Australian dollars, 1,671 Australian dollars, and imprisonment of 3 years. I was imprisoned for 3 months. It feels like 3 years to me, and I can't imagine what is 3 years. It's a death sentence for me. And I was in a male's prison. At that time, I was only 21 years old. I'm still young though. And that was my first experience of sex in the prison. Imagine me being in a male prison, and I've done certain alteration to my body. I was forced to do sexual favors to the inmates in there. No one would help me. Do you know why? Because they say, you deserve that. You are not men. These are all plastics. These are all plastic. So anyone can touch it because you are men. Imagine me having sex in prison without protection. But when I came out, I'm thankful to God that I wasn't affected in a way. But imagine the other girls going through the same situation. And just recently, 17 transgender women in Negeri Sembilan Bahau has been arrested in this law. And they were all being put in prison. Their hair all been balled up. And guess what? It's not sex work. It's not whatever. It's just for attending a wedding function. Okay? Next. So, what do I do back home? The issue of transgender women is HIV is just a part of it. Our issue is our identity. As I said, I love Malaysia, I love my country, but sadly I'm not recognized being as who I am in my country. In my ID it says me being male. Even when I came to International AIDS Conference, sadly it was stated as male in my name tag. And what I did, of course I changed it. So a name issue, it's very important to us trans people. If a person calls me by Mr., do I look like a mister? Or should I be undressed or naked in front of everyone to prove that I'm not a man? Okay? So, what I'm doing back home in Malaysia with the campaign that I have is basically to help the transgender woman to get their identity rights. I've been going through with 3 girls who are sex workers back home in Malaysia, in Seremban. We are basically saying the Sharia law contravenes with our federal constitution, which is based on Article 8 for equality, Article 10 for freedom of speech, Article 9, Article 5, and equality again. It clearly stated that the Sharia law does contravenes towards the mother law of Malaysia, which is based on our federal constitution. Okay, so this is what we are going through for the past 3 years, and our last judgment day will be on November 7th. That will be like a landmark day for all transgender women in Malaysia. So I'm crossing my fingers and my toes or wherever crossing, yeah? The impact of the law. Transgender women being shaved bald, the one that I mentioned earlier on. And these transgender women are all, the youngest was 16, 17, 22, and the oldest was 34. They didn't do anything wrong, but they will be put in prison. And all of them were shaved bald. The issue of our identity, as I mentioned earlier, in Malaysia, the last odd number stated being male. So people would know. The gender being stated as being male. And the name, of course, being male. If you notice the name Bin is for a male Muslim person. Binti is for Muslim male person. Muslim person. So this happened last 2 years ago. Alisha Farhana, she was my dear friend. She's a trans post-op woman. That means she goes for the full sex change. She was basically a pharmaceutical. She works in a pharmacy. She wanted further studies to be a doctor. So she applied in a local university to further studies. She was declined because of the issue of her ID. That is her. So she brought up a case to the court. She wanted to change her ID in a name card and everything, but it was declined. And it was a hot issue back home in Malaysia. The government, the religious department, the media, and even certain social people, they condemn her, they condemn even her family for having such a child. Do you know what happened to her? She passed away. And in Malaysia, there you go. We have signboards being put in the streets to tell people that you guys can harm us, that you guys can beat us. Because you know why? Because we are deviant people. We cause harm to the whole society. And what happened when all these are there? Okay, we have a politician giving LGBT hate remarks in the mainstream media. And I'm not afraid to say this because this is in the media. My beloved Prime Minister basically said that LGBT people, along with liberalism and pluralism, are the enemies of Islam. What does that happen? This happened. Mona, a friend of mine again in Kuantan, she was basically beaten up by a group of mat rempets. Mat rempets are those youngsters on the bikes. They goes around, start to TG bashing or transgender bashing. And she was slashed on the throat. Thank God she's alive. So, I'm standing here today talking as a transgender Muslim from Malaysia. What I'm saying is that we transgender women back home in Malaysia, we face violence just because of our identity. And I don't know, maybe when I go back home now in the airport, I can be arrested because I just mentioned about my Prime Minister. Which frankly saying, I don't care because I've gone through so much in prison that I don't really care anymore. What I want is basically for people out there to listen to the voice of my community. I want to bring back with a case that I was bringing up of the 3 transgender women that we are going against the Sharia law. The first case we lost in Seremban court. I'm highlighting both parts, yeah? One was mentioned, this was a decision made by the judge in Seremban High Court. Applicants are born male and to this date are still male, although they have undergone surgery to enhance their appearance. We had medical evidence from local doctors to say that these girls are under GID or under DSM-5, which is gender identity dysphoria. But again, they decline it. And please read the second one, which I highlighted here. This is what the judge said. When transsexual wears female attire, although biologically they are male and have male sexual organs and desire, they will engage in homosexual relationship, which is a cause of HIV. So does that mean if I repent myself to be a male, I won't have sex? Right? How do you expect us to do prevention work among the transgender women if you're not giving us even our identity being as a woman? Right? And even when we talk about data collection, we can't do much back home in Malaysia because every single data has been included being as a male, not as a transgender woman. Recently, in 2009, based on the IBBS research survey, out of 10 trans women, 1 was affected of HIV/AIDS. And this was only in the Klang Valley. But again, how can you do prevention work if you keep on have all these laws and everything? And there are cases of condoms being used as an evidence. And most sex workers, transgender sex workers, are being held not because of being a sex worker, but just being of who they are. basically, that is all. Again, I would say thank you so much to the organizer for giving us this space to talk on our issues. Thank you.